Did you know that your architecture portfolio could be worth thousands and thousands of dollars? Today, we're going to flip through my $100,000 architecture portfolio and we're going to go over 20 tips and tricks. Before we get into it, we need to address the elephant in the room. My architecture portfolio for the past 3 years has earned me well over $100,000. And this includes everything from awards to competitions and scholarships. So this is actually a lot more common than you may think. And it's 100% attainable. I'm going to be flipping through my portfolio page by page, and I'm going to shout out 20 tips and tricks that you're going to need to know. So my first tip for the first page of your portfolio is going to be to make it as simple as possible. Something that shows a quick insight into skills that you have, like as mine, for instance, is a floating cube and a shadow with a gradient below it. So it's simple, somewhat elegant, and it's in black and white. So it really brings a reader in. There's also some colorful squares or annotations at the bottom there that I think will draw people more into the portfolio to see what those are referencing. In this version of my portfolio, I actually left out my resume, and I think that's totally up to you whether you want to include it or not. A lot of times the applications that I was doing asked for a resume as well as a portfolio, so I just kept them separate as to not confuse anybody. One interesting thing that I did do with my resume when I include it in my portfolio is to have a QR code on it. And that QR code actually links up to my website, which has a lot more work on it, more than I could have fit in my portfolio. It's nice to bring more traffic to your website. It also keeps them engaged a little bit longer. So I'm here on the table of contents, and you can see that I have a lot of little images spread out across the screen here. I like this because as a new viewer, you open up the portfolio and you can immediately see what's next to come. And don't forget to include the locations that these proposals are taking place in, because people tend to really connect to location. So if they see a city or an area that they know, you can bet they're probably going to check out that project more in depth. And the last thing I want to go over while we're here on the table of contents is looking at the order in which you show your projects. I think this is one of the most important things that you can do to your portfolio, is to think about the order in which you're going to show them. There's so many different ways that you can do this. You can do it chronologically, you can do it alphabetically, you can do it according to color, you can do it according to which professors you had. There's really endless options. The strategy that I would suggest on how to order your proposals within your portfolio is a strategy that I picked up from a professor that I used to have, as well as a couple coworkers. So the first proposal you're going to put is your favorite proposal or your absolute best proposal. Because like I said before, first impressions are everything. So the first thing you want people to see when they open it up is your best project, and you want them to be super impressed. And then now we're going to skip ahead to the last proposal in your portfolio. You want that one to be your second best project. And that is because you also want to end on a good note. So I'm going to throw a little formula up on the screen here so it doesn't get too confusing. That way, your very first project is your best. The projects that come after that are ones that you really enjoy. And then you're ending on a really great note as well with your second best project. Also, please take notice about the marginalia on this page here. At the top left corner, it says architecture, top right, portfolio. Bottom left and right, I have page numbers as well as index boxes. Left side, table of contents, right side, table of contents. All these change as we progress through the portfolio. So keep an eye on those to see how I do it and see if it's something that you would find useful for you. The great thing about this is it keeps the viewer engaged, so it keeps their eyes moving around the screen. It always gives them something to read or to look at, whether it's what page they're on or what section they're in. But most importantly, what it does is it adds hierarchy to the pages. I would say at minimum, you want 3 different scale images on every page. When you start having like 10 images on a page and they're all different sizes, it could be really messy and people aren't able to read what you're trying to communicate to them. It's like you don't want too many chefs in the kitchen all fighting for the same stove. Is that how the saying goes? I don't know. It kind of makes sense though. and I've always really enjoyed portfolios that guide you through all the projects. I would always try to start each project out with a description, something clear, concise, and to the point. I spoke a little bit earlier about how a portfolio should guide you through the projects, and I want you to take notice that this page here is actually the context page for this project, Interlive. You can see it's a mapping, and also you get some infographics on the right-hand side. This kind of situates you within Detroit and lets you know where we are. So you're kind of starting on the macro scale, and we're going to narrow down into the micro scale. For my portfolio, what I did was I started with the introduction. The next page or two is the context to situate you somewhere in the world or in the universe. And then we go into the concept pages, which gives you more drawings and lets you know what the project is all about visually and graphically. And then finally, we go into construction, and that's the very minute and micro scale. So we're talking about joinery, we're doing plan sections, all kinds of details. So again, mine goes introduction, context, concept, and construction. I don't think there's much to say about this page in particular. I'm trying to list out program that is found throughout the multifamily housing. Every time that I had a render or interior perspective or exterior perspective that matched with this programming, I would then call that out on the bottom as well. So within this building, we had a lot of different programming going on. We had greenhouses, terraces, build outs, egress, circulation, of course, and public spaces and semi-public spaces. We thought the best way to show this would be to create a ghosted diagram that highlights the different programming within the building. We show all the typologies underneath the big massing up on the top left, and at the bottom we have a section perspective. You know, there's a lot about this image that I would change. I've gotten a lot of compliments on it, and I think I'm happy with it, but there's always room for improvement. So always try new things, and sooner or later you'll find a style that you like, and you might also discover a workflow that really lets your creative juices flow. So I've actually uploaded the template to this portfolio, as well as the tips and tricks to my Patreon's page. So if you're interested in supporting this channel further, please head over there and check it out. So I think what makes this page successful is you have a quick isometric diagram of all the unit typologies so people can see what they look like. And immediately right next to it, they have a plan view of what that looks like. And then right next to that one, they have a perspective. So not only do they get a massing of it, they also get the dimensions of it and how it feels to be in it. This page is one of the construction pages, and I dedicated it solely to our plan drawings. One of my team members did an amazing job on these plans, and I wanted to showcase her work. Which reminds me that we should always be crediting people that have worked on the images. I think what really stands out on this page is hierarchy. You can see the massive section detail on the left-hand side, the elevation on the right-hand side with dimensions, and then down the center you have a parapet, bifold shading device, and integrated bench. These are 3 areas of the section detail that I think really stand out and make the building unique. So I wanted to pull those to the center and showcase them. And the last image for each one of the projects in my portfolio, I wanted to do a full bleed image. Full screen images look really nice on large displays. And it's okay, be confident and show them off. Make one full page in your portfolio a full bleed image. Some images just look better bigger. One thing that I want to point out about Centripetal is I took a photograph of the viaducts while we were in New York. I think nothing really brings a portfolio alive more than a photograph. It's something that every architect should know how to do, and if you don't know, it's good to go ahead and start practicing while you're a student or a young professional. A lot of architecture is about capturing the light, sculpting the light, molding the light, and the same goes for photography. And if you already know how to take photographs, go ahead and show off those skills. I think it's okay for your mappings to be very messy as long as people get the general idea of what's going on. Mappings are very great because you can pull information from the site that you probably wouldn't be able to do in section, perspective, or any other view. I actually always start all my projects out in plan view and doing a site analysis, and I always try to bring up the hidden lines that you don't normally see on your first pass. I just want to pause for a quick moment here for tip number 10 and ask you to subscribe and like. This is probably the most critical step that you can take, as it'll give you up-to-date information as the Alt Art channel grows. You will always be the first to know. Okay, moving on. All right, we got concept diagrams. People love concept diagrams. I would try to use them as much as possible. Conceptual diagrams are great as space fillers, and they also usually look good small as well as large on the page. But most importantly, they give really good information. The thing that really stands out to me on this page is the infographics. There's so many statistics that you can pull from an area that can really influence your design. Infographics show that you're very knowledgeable about the site, and even though you're an architect, you're not afraid of a little bit of math. Just as we saw previously for Interlive, I'm using a full bleed image at the end. So for our next tip, I'm going to say renders bring viewers into the space. We react and respond to perspectives much differently than we do any other type of drawing. And even if you're showing the perspective to a child or an elderly person, they'll be able to get a good feel for what it's like to be in that space. It just, everybody understands a well-made perspective. For Archadapture, this is at the very beginning of the pandemic in the summer of 2020, and we were looking at how our cities will change due to the pandemic. I think what's really powerful about this project is at that point in time, it was very relevant. And I think it's important that us as designers create things that are relevant to the times. Every day when you wake up, try to hit your daily podcast, try to hit your 5-minute news flash, try to be an active member in your community. This actually reminds me, let me know in the comments down below your concept for your favorite proposal in your portfolio. I think it'd be really interesting to see it, and you can look around and see what everybody else is doing too. Yeah, so this is just a further dive into how the office, parking garages, hotels, and apartments will change. NaCl immersion. NaCl, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, is the molecular makeup of salt. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I want to talk about this one a little bit because I think it's important that you use projects not only from your design class. A lot of times we have other classes where we fabricate chairs, lamps, or you possibly do competitions on the side like you see here for NaCl immersion. These are all projects that I bet if you took a second look at are very powerful and hold their own. Here we have a couple diagrams showing how the hydrophilic fabric weeps up salt water from the salt flats, and as it dries above ground, it becomes large salt rocks that attach to the structure of the building. Again, this is a full bleed perspective render that I have of that project. Like I said, don't be afraid, be confident, throw them in there, show them what you got. This project Somnum I did in my first year of graduate school. The really interesting thing about Somnum is it plays with the sun a lot. I did a lot of sun studies for this project, but I don't really want to go too much in depth on that. I think what I want to talk about with this project is climate change. It's a real hot topic right now. I think everybody should learn about it. We should be about it. We should talk about it. I think every building that we build should return back to the earth what we sourced with interest. Moving on. Time. Time is a very beautiful thing. Something that we don't really see a lot in architectural work. What I'm trying to say is that showing images that show the passing of time is a very powerful thing you can do. It shows that you understand that a building is not one quick snapshot in time, and it's actually a living, breathing vessel that has many lives that unfold as the seasons change. I love the texture of materials. I like showcasing them. It's got some sketches on it. It's got some really weird sections that I made that are all yellow. They don't really show much, but yeah, I love the color. I love highlighter yellow. I mean, I've got a bunch of these things sitting around. I highlight everything. Favorite color aside, I love this page. It's very good to understand where and how you source your materials. A lot of times that can actually even influence how your building looks or how it's designed or what the program is in your building. We should all show and acknowledge how we source the material that we're claiming to use in our projects. And if you do so graphically, it could make for a very interesting project. The building phases are great because it shows your viewer that you actually understand that a building or a structure or your design is not simply a quick snapshot. It's actually something that could be very real. And like I was talking about with the materials, how you build a building actually really affects how it's going to look in the end. So like I said, it's really great to have building construction phases somewhere in your portfolio. Okay, we have another full bleed image. We have a little ski guy right there flying through the snow. This building had some crazy angles on it because it was capturing light during very specific times of the year. And not only that, but very specific times of the day during breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was supposed to be a place that people can come and reset their circadian rhythm in a natural environment. Okay, so moving on. Last but not least, we have Hexapod and Luminaire Luminaire. These are both fabricated things that I've made myself outside of school. I think it's really important to include anything in your portfolio that you have enjoyed making with your own two hands. There's a couple lifestyle management tips I want to throw in here as well, and believe me, I'm not a pro at most of these, if any of them, but I think time management is a huge one. You know, there's plenty of YouTube videos on that. I was thinking about maybe doing one in the future. When you are making your portfolio, try to work with what you have. It's very easy to look at an empty page and say, I could make this, and I could make that, and I could make this, and I could change that. But sometimes it's just better to throw everything you have on the page, organize it, and really analyze what you have time for. Somebody told me a long time ago, go ahead and double how much time you think it's going to take, and then add 9 hours. And so far, every time I've used that formula, it works out pretty good. Sleeping is a huge one. Sleep good. Doctors say 8-9 hours a day. We all know that's probably not going to happen, but you know, it gives us something to aim for. A huge one is look at everybody else like they're your teacher. Take advice from people. Check your ego at the door. An ego can really ruin a project. It can really ruin a portfolio. And last but not least, utilize healthy competition. It's good to be competitive as long as you do it in a healthy way and it gives you passion and inspiration to do better. But also you want to utilize that healthy competition so that not only you grow, but you're able to bring other people around you up as well. Oh, I almost forgot. You're probably wanting to see the last page. I have a quote in here by Glenn, my favorite architect. We do not create the work. I believe we, in fact, are discoverers. All right, there we have it. Okay, thanks for watching, y'all. I have a link to my Patreon page in the description below. If you're interested in the tips and tricks list or the portfolio template, go check it out. If you like the video, please like the video and subscribe down below to see future content. And thank you all for your support and for hanging out with me today. I'll catch you in the next one. Sharing is caring. Sharing is caring. Sharing is caring.